Looking at the long bone specifically, we have general anatomy that you will see. Long bones are going to have compact bone and spongy bone. So compact bone is essentially very dense, and it exists in a long bone as an outer shell. It encloses the medullary cavity. So you can see this outer shell here is compact bone. On the inside, in certain regions of the long bone, you have spongy or cancellous bone. This is bone tissue that's got a lot more space in between it. It's not as dense. It's found in the center of the ends of the bones. So in these regions, you have spongy bone in the two epiphyses, and you can find it in the shafts of the long bones as well as in the middle of a bunch of other bones. This spongy bone is covered by the compact bone, so you can see around these ends there's compact bone surrounding the spongy bone. And just to give you an idea of how much of our skeleton is made of which types, 3/4 of our skeleton is compact bone, and that really dense bone. And then only 1/4 of it is spongy bone. And that's by weight, not by actual amount. Another image here shows you spongy bone inside the end of a long bone in here. So all of this, the spongy bone is marked by something called trabeculae, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But trabeculae are basically these lines of spongy bone, and where they orient themselves is going to mostly be where there's the stress of weight on the bone the most. You can see these lines in red, and they're indicated as the lines of stress. And this is where you're going to see the trabeculae oriented in such a way that they can withstand the most of that stress and helps provide the best support for that bone. In a long bone, there's also other names that you need to be familiar with that represent the anatomy. The long part, or the middle region, or what we call the shaft, is formerly known as the diaphysis. This has that compact bone shell surrounding a medullary cavity. The medullary cavity is going to be this hollowed out inside that is going to house marrow, be it red or yellow marrow. The compact bone collar is going to be what we've referred to the compact bone that surrounds the medullary cavity. And again, the long bone is going to provide the leverage. The diaphysis is primarily what provides that leverage. On either end, on your proximal end and distal end of a long bone, you have something known as the epiphysis. I referred to it on the previous slide. Plural, it's epiphyses. These are expanded ends of the bone that are going to have compact bone on the outside and that spongy bone on the inside. These are going to be at the ends where they meet other bones, and so they're going to form a joint. These epiphyses are going to strengthen that joint, and they help anchor ligaments and tendons. There's also an epiphyseal line. This is where a growth plate was when one is young and a child and they're growing. As one becomes an adult, it forms into a line. And then on the joint surfaces, you can see here on this one end, articular cartilage is basically a layer over the epiphysis. And you'll have it down here too. And articular cartilage basically is going to aid in preventing friction between the two bones when they meet at a joint.